Story 1. Someone once brought me scrambled eggs at work. I know I should have been suspicious, but when I bit down on something crunchy, she said that it was bone and I was eating scrambled eggs with pig brains. I will never trust food from someone else again. Story 2. Sea cucumber in a soup. Had it at a huge Chinese wedding that my dad took me to when I was a kid. He and my mom were fighting, so I had to go instead of her. I know it's supposed to be a delicacy, but it tasted horrible. Story 3. Soft shell crab sandwich. You eat the whole thing. The crab's legs are hanging off the sides of the sandwich roll. The idea of it was so off-putting, but it was delicious. Story 4. Geez, haha, you name it. I've eaten turtle, dugong, kangaroo, crocodile, goanna, echidna, snake, cat, camel, scorpion, heaps of different snails and mollusks, emu, cane toad, Keena's sea urchin, jellyfish. I'm sure there's more that I've forgotten. I grew up in rural towns in Australia with lots of indigenous mates. Edit. Horse, rabbit, witchetty grubs, and eels. Story 5. Nothing. I'm of the mind that if I go to another part of the world, I'm going to starve to death. I won't criticize another person for being poor or eating out of necessity, but like pig vaginas in Vietnam, I'd starve to death. Story 6. Lion. There was a place in Sacramento that served strange animals, and they had a lion burger. I believe it was actually mostly antelope with some lion mixed in, but still. Story 7. Let's see. Alligator, crocodile, boa constrictor, horse, duck fetus, ballot, camel, goat, whole crunchy shore crabs, sea cucumber, jellyfish, pigeon, eels, kangaroo, black bear, moose, deer, frog, rabbit, snails, squid, octopus, cuttlefish, sea urchin, crickets, ants. I think that's it. Story 8. Earthworm. A guy came to my school with a lecture on the economic benefits of earthworm farming and brought earthworm pate for tasting. It didn't taste like anything special, just garlicky. Story 9. I tried whale sashimi at a fish market in Japan. Tasted like a bloodier, chewier tuna. Not too bad, but not my favorite. It was worth the novelty of it. Story 10. It's funny how easily you can spot what I assume to be the Americans here. Anyways, crocodile, kangaroo, ostrich egg, snail, crickets, mealworm, rabbit, according to multiple comments, this is somehow weird, and frog, which I assume is weird if you don't live close to or in France. If I had to choose one, I guess snail would be the weirdest, even though it's pretty commonly eaten in France. Story 11. I grew up in southern West Virginia, and we ate squirrels quite a bit. My grandmother would eat their brains. She even had a little brain spoon she used. I tried to like them, but never could. Story 12. Ostrich like beef, but I found it a little saltier. Moose like beef, but gamier and tougher. Frog like chicken, but slimy, greasy, and with a bit of a fishy smell. Story 13. Elephant, warthog, springbok, kudu, mopani worm, like a giant grub, in Zimbabwe. All mild except warthog, which was off the chain good. Oh, and rotten shark hakarl in Iceland, which was horrific. Story 14. Alligator in Florida. Tasted pretty good, to be fair. Tarantula in Cambodia. I was pretty drunk and think it was deep fried, if I recall. Rat in Thailand, only a small bit. I don't know why. A couple of roadside cafes in Thailand, so who knows what else. Story 15. The farmer who made it had to get defensive during a drought season that was forcing desperate wildlife further down the foothills in search of food. It ate a bunch of his livestock before he finally caught it. It was all right. Story 16. Crocodile. It tasted fine, but it was really chewy. It only cost me $1 or so since it was at a festival. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't exactly the best thing I've ever eaten. Story 17. I grew up in the country, so I've eaten lots of animals. Squirrel, possum, rabbit, raccoon, deer, rattlesnake, snapping turtle, alligator, bullfrog, bison, elk, moose, antelope, duck, goose, wild turkey, dove, pheasant, boar, plus pretty much any freshwater fish you can name. Story 18. Urchin roe was gross. Barbecue-flavored crickets taste okay. Snails taste like sandy slime. Buffalo tastes like a mix of venison and beef. Ostrich tastes like dark turkey meat. Story 19. We eat alligator tail just about everywhere in Florida. Tastes like chewy chicken nuggets. I dip it in ketchup. It's pretty great. I've eaten shark, which was marinated for 12 hours. I was anticipating it to be delicious. It was a huge slab of meat, grilled or smoked on the grill. It was tough, not easy to chew, and didn't taste good at all. Buffalo and beefalo are delicious. I've made that into sloppy joes, shepherd's pie, and burgers. I've also eaten steaks and they're yummy. Not sure if that's normal or not. They have it here at the local public stores and butchers. Kangaroo jerky tastes like regular jerky, probably mixed in with other things like pork, but very good. Story 20. I went to a game dinner and tried lots of stuff. Moose, bear, alligator, turtle, squirrel. I have deer all the time. Most were okay, but the bear was not for me, and the turtle too. The turtle tasted like a dirty aquarium smells. No adverse reactions to any of it, but next time, no to turtle. Bleck. Story 21. Never eaten anything off the scale but a little tale I once read about. A very wealthy woman in New York took her chihuahua with her to an Asian restaurant. The woman wanted food for her dog and asked the waiter to provide it. The waiter barely spoke English and did not understand. So the woman pointed to the dog and made a chewing motion. And you can see where this is going. The waiter nodded and took the little dog off to the kitchen. Some time later, it was served up on a platter with rice. Story 22. Ostrich in South Africa. Probably not the weirdest, but for an American, it's pretty rare. It's very lean and healthy with low fat and high protein, and it was good. Tastes like a beef steak. Story 23. Nothing really interesting in my opinion. Probably alligator or rattlesnake. Alligator tail fried I actually like. Rattlesnake is purely for the novelty. It was basically just the tiniest amount of rib meat with some breading, not bad or offensive, but meh. Maybe alligator gartu? It is just fish, though a weird fish. It was good. Lobster and crabs are weird as well, even though they're not really novel anymore. I can eat them, but they are basically giant bugs and I find that icky. Story 24. Take your pick. I have eaten scorpion, mealworms, crickets, snails, sea cucumber, frog, pigeon, ostrich, ox, zebra, horse, kangaroo, donkey, snake, rabbit. I may be forgetting a few. Story 25. Rabbit at a fancy restaurant, alligator or crocodile in a can, and human flesh. Okay. I was cutting vegetables, and a piece of the dry skin at the corner of my fingernail got sliced off. Did I make some sort of potion? Story 26. When I worked at Walmart, a coworker brought in a crock pot of what looked like pulled pork. He told me to help myself. Tasted like barbecue turkey, so I asked what it was. He told me he would wait for me to finish. I assured him I'm not one of those people to freak out at what I eat, especially if I say I like it. It was raccoon. I got another plate. Story 27. Boar, yeah, it's like pig. Bear, a little gamey, but it was okay, somewhat like beef. Alligator, similar to clams. It was served in strips. Emu, it was weird, and I don't know what it was like. Frog, like a fishy chicken. Deer, not that exotic, but still gamey like bear. Goat, again, not exotic, but also not as common in some parts of the United States. Very gamey, but tasty. Story 28. Frog, ant larvae, snails, alligator, squirrel, rabbit, cedar waxwing, probably more, but those come off the top of my head. I've been meaning to try turtle, but I always end up feeling too bad about the thought of killing one just to try. I don't know why with the turtle compared to others, but maybe partially because I don't see them as often as other things I've personally killed to eat, making it seem more cruel to further reduce their population even though I know there are plenty, and I just seldom end up where they are common here. Story 29. When I was working in Japan, I had whale sashimi and horse sushi. I can understand why the Japanese eat whale meat. It tastes like bacon. However, the horse sushi I don't understand. It was like eating rubber. Story 30. Jellyfish. My friend got some at a Chinese restaurant and I decided to try a bite. It was pretty much like eating rubber bands soaked in salt water. No flavor after the first few seconds and took several minutes to chew well enough to swallow. Did you ever chew on the thicker rubber bands when you were a kid? The way they would sort of squeak over your teeth? It was very similar. In conclusion, not offensive, but I would not eat it again. Even if it tasted like something I love, the texture is a lot to get past. Story 31. Fish air bladder. I was eating with a Chinese boyfriend and said, "Anything but brains. Don't tell me what it is until after I eat it." It was delicious. Story 32. It wasn't too bad. Like dark meat chicken, but tougher. Honorary mention is lamb testicles. Technically, the animal isn't weird, though. Tastes fine. Had the spongy texture of a chicken nugget. Story 33. Snail in a spinach and ostrich burger. The first almost made me vomit, but the second one, if I didn't know it was ostrich, I wouldn't distinguish the taste from a normal, good quality burger patty. Story 34. A classmate had kangaroo jerky and didn't tell me what it was until afterward. She had tarantula jerky too, but didn't dare offer it to me because it would have been a full-blown war. Story 35. Accidentally ate several mayflies at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Their parking lot gets completely swarmed with them at certain times of the year. It's almost impossible not to ingest a few while trying to get back to your car at the end of the day. Story 36. Alligator in Bolivia. Guinea pig in Peru. Ants in Colombia. Crickets in Mexico. Tortoise in Venezuela. Scorpions in Thailand. Bullfrog in China. Story 37. I went to a jerky place that serves kangaroo, alligator, wild boar, and ostrich jerky. Here in Finland, they also serve straight-up horse meat in slices for our sandwich. I love horse meat, honestly. Story 38. A cockroach found its way into a cup of coffee I had lying about. I bit into it and was like, "What the heck?" I spat it out and saw. Then I burst out laughing. In Las Vegas at the Wicked Spoon brunch, the French toast happened to be next to the roasted bone marrow. In a moment of divinely inspired genius, I smeared the marrow on the toast and drizzled it in syrup. I swear that got me pregnant with my first. Story 39. People usually think it is weird to eat squirrels, but they do taste good if you cook them properly, like dark meat chicken wings. Besides a few people I know, I think the only others who eat them around here are Hmong people. Story 40. I don't know. I was in rural China, and a guy was grilling meat on a stick. I was on the verge of passing out from hunger, so I bought two. My Chinese was not good, but I asked him what kind of meat it was, and in English he said, "It's well cooked." I said, "Yeah, what kind of meat though?" And he got mad and said, "Well cooked." Story 41. I was on a world tour in the late 1960s with grandmother, who was an anti-MAME type. Somewhere in Africa, we were served monkey brains. They were quite good until I found out what it was. So many technicolor yawns. Story 42. Seal and whale blubber. Seal from the northeast coast of Newfoundland was tender but greasy, and the taste was a bit unpleasant. Blubber in Iqaluit, known as Frobisher Bay at the time, was like a frozen block of super greasy lard with soy sauce. Story 43. It's not weird, but it's also not common where I come from as much as people probably think. But Canadian beaver tastes like it smells. That's literally all I have to say about that. Story 44. I have tried a lot of food. Kangaroo, bear, elk, venison, fish jerky, rabbit, squid, turtle, squirrel, scorpion, octopus, eel, and alligator that people find weird. I will try most things at least once. I would eat most of the food listed again except the scorpion. It was just a weird, prickly texture. Story 45. I had cougar meat at a barbecue earlier this year. It might have been good, but it was way overcooked. It basically tasted like really gamey chicken. I liked it all right, but I would have loved it if it hadn't been so dry. But I also understand the need to cook it thoroughly to avoid disease and parasites. In a perfect world, we could have tender, juicy cougar without getting tapeworms or something. Story 46. Ostrich and goose eggs, not together. The ostrich lived on a farm and accidentally got electrocuted to death, so the meat was tough. We ended up making soup with the meat. Story 47. Dog. Not on purpose. My college roommate was from Cambodia. I walked into the room after not eating all day, and whatever he was cooking on the hot plate smelled delicious. I said it smelled good. He fished a slice out of the bowl and offered it to me. I should have known. I saw the box from his mother right there. But man, it smelled amazing. And it tasted even better. That was 34 years ago. And to this day, it's still the best thing I've ever eaten. Then I asked what it was. When his mother called later, she asked if I had tried it. I said yes, and she offered to ship me some. I politely declined. Story 48. Oryx. There was an exotic game market near me that had all kinds of unusual meats. I got a couple of steaks. I was young and didn't know about a lot of the nuances of cooking. Tasted okay, but was tough because I had no idea what to do with it. Story 49. Apparently tapeworm eggs when I was a child, but knowingly as an adult. Ostrich, rabbit, moose, reindeer, shark, kangaroo, crickets, snails. Story 50. I ate a groundhog one time. I shot it while it was in my field. Clean headshot, so no wasted meat. I figured I'd process it and made stew meat. First and only time I ate one. Story 51. Ate raw puffin in Iceland. Was an appetizer prior to a whale steak, which was also delicious. The fermented shark, on the other hand, I will never eat again. Story 52. Giant water bug, iguana, and ballot. Iguana is delicious, and it is super invasive and non-native in Florida. More people should be eating it. Giant water bug was kind of earthy if I recall correctly. It was not bad. Ballot was really good, to be honest. It kind of had its own broth inside the egg. Some of the egg was soft and some of it was chewy. Story 53. Zebra. Specifically boil-in-the-bag zebra. Bought it frozen from a specialist butcher and messed up the thawing of it. Accidentally cooked it sous vide under the hot tap. It wasn't great. Story 54. For work, I had to attend a charity dinner of a conservation group. They were a group of hunters that raised pheasants to release and then hunt. The charity dinner was bring what you killed. There was turtle, raccoon, skunk, groundhog, duck, deer, moose, beaver, and muskrat. The skunk and muskrat were not good. Deer in southern Ontario are corn-fed, which makes great meat. At work, I always referred to it as the critter dinner.